Okay, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us on this World Seabird Day today on July 3rd. We have a very exciting session coming up with you from the Indian Seabird Group. Before we get into our speaker and talk to her, I would like to introduce the group and what we do. So, the Indian Seabird Group was formed to create awareness and foster research on seabirds, especially in India and in the Indian Ocean region. We are a collaborative effort to kind of create awareness about seabirds because they're massively understudied and understand their ecology and behavior. So today we have a very exciting speaker with us. She's Gayomini Panagoda. She is a PhD student at the University of Colombo, and she's going to tell us about her research and give us a bit of insights on what seawards she works on and how their migration and ecology turns out in her research. So I will introduce her now. Go ahead.
Hi, Shivya. Thank you very much for having me, and hi, everybody. And I must thank the Indian Seabird Group and first of all, Anand Pandey, who initially invited me to speak on this important day, the World Seabird Day, and to present my work and our findings on the coastal seabirds that we work with in the Gulf of Mannar. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much. And we are thrilled to have you joining us today. So, from what I understand, you are working at a very particular, a very unique hotspot in Sri Lanka.
Exactly. So, um, okay, let me just share my screen and show you. Yeah, so I hope you can see my screen. Can you? Not yet. Okay, it's
Yes.
coming up. So this is Mannar Island. So actually, for Indians, it's not. It's a very familiar place, you know. So this legendary Rama's Bridge Island chain connecting us. This is the Mannar Island, connecting Mannar Island to the Pamban Island of Southeast India. So it's a sand island chain of 16 islands. So here we consider this as it was long considered as a migratory gateway, migratory entry and exit point to Sri Lanka. So the birds that comes from the mainland India, the continental Asia, it's use this Ramas Bridge Island chain to enter Sri Lanka and then disperse further south and inland. So here we are placed right at the tip of the Ramas Bridge. This is our field research station, Sandpiper House, and our team is working there starting from 2018. And so there are lots of studies that we do from there. So my PhD research is mainly focused on the migration ecology of water birds. So in this occasion, today I'm going to focus on the findings that are related to coastal seabirds that I work with. And so if you move forward, so this is the big picture. This is how Sri Lanka's position in the Central Asian flyway. You can see we are at the very terminus, one of the southernmost destinations of the flyway. So, you know, the Central Asian flyway is considered one of the poorly studied, probably the least studied flyway in the whole world. So there are lots and lots of work to do. So from Sri Lanka, from its southernmost, from the Central Asian Flyway southernmost destination, we are trying to characterize the flyway using its land-based migratory water birds as a model. So there are a lot of species that I work with, so the shorebirds, ducks, and other large water birds, and the coastal seabirds as well. So this is our team. It's not just me. I'm the spokesperson today, but there's a really big team behind me. So these are my supervisors. So most of these places are familiar to you, I guess. This is my main supervisor, PhD supervisor, Professor Sampath Senaviratna. Sorry. and from the University of Colombo, and then standing next to him, Dr. H. Mankar from Wetlands International, Dr. Balachandran from BNHS, and Professor Arat Kotagama from University of Colombo, and our collaborators at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, led by Professor Charlie, and then also Dr. H. Lobben from the Seabird Oceanography Lab at the Oregon State University, and we are funded by the Palmer House Private Limited in Sri Lanka, chaired by Mr. Rajasilan Nyanam, who's right here in the photo. And we also have two undergraduate students who are working with Seabirds in our lab here, Marsha and Dina. They just completed their bachelor's degree and finished their undergraduate research on coastal on pelagic seabirds of the western EEZ in Sri Lanka. So this is our team. So slowly we can move on to see what we are doing from Mannar, what's with the coastal seabirds, and what kind of work we do with them. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you have a full house and a fantastic big team to work with.
It is.
So I think maybe you can, maybe we should get into how you got interested in studying seabirds and shorebirds particularly, because it's relatively a niche group to kind of study, and not a lot of people go into studying them, which is why our understanding of a lot of behavior and ecology of them is quite understudied. So would you like to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Actually, it all started. So I was first. I will tell you how I came into birds. Actually, this happened with my best friend. So she was a birder, and she looking at her how she was enjoying and that watching birds, listening to them. So she lived in this edge of a rainforest, and just by looking at her, I think I got trapped inside. It was a very inspiring thing for me, and then that's how I stepped into the world of birds. And then so we started exploring together. So there was one occasion years ago we went to Mannar. So we were part of there was an association called Young Zoologists Association in Sri Lanka. So we have different uh, groups for different animal classes. So obviously we were in the birds group, and then they take field trips to different sites in Sri Lanka, birding hotspots, and with them only I went to Mannar for the first time, and I fell in uh, love with this place. It's the vast landscapes, open spaces. I love that kind of places. The you can see the sea, the sand up to the horizon, 360 degrees around you. So amidst of this, I found these shorebirds and seabirds. Got to see them. I witnessed their sight for the first time in my life, and I fell in love with them. So then I later completed my bachelor's and passed out of the university. And I was looking for the postgraduate opportunities, but not in birds in particular. But one day I heard about this project that my supervisor, Professor Sampath Senaviratne from University of Colombo, he had this idea of doing a planning, starting a long-term study in Mannar Island to understand how it contributes to water bird migration, how it contributes to bird migration in the flyway and in Sri Lanka. So it was known. It was actually a lot of people are talking that this is a migratory entrance point to Sri Lanka, but we didn't have any solid evidence, or it was all based on those stories brought down by the colonial birders. And it was in the books, but we didn't have any solid evidence. So he wanted to start a study, and he was looking for a student. So then I, I got to see this advertisement, and I applied. I was already in love with this place and with the birds, and then I got the chance. He selected me. Then that's how I came into the seabirds and shorebirds. And we went to Mannar. So we have this field research station. You saw that, the Sandpiper House. And I started living in Mannar, and I started working with the seabirds. And as I go with every step forward, the more I learned, I think the more my passion and love and interest on these birds grew. So that's how it happened.
That is fascinating. I also remember my interest in birds and bird watching started because of a friend of mine who took me bird watching for the first time. So I feel like it's a common running theme here.
Exactly.
So, as you're doing your PhD right now, can you tell us about your research, what you're currently working on, and how you're studying these birds and their ecology?
Yeah. So it's like this. Yeah. So my the main focus behind my PhD research is actually understanding the migration ecology of the water birds and how which migratory routes that they take when they come to Sri Lanka and what are their breeding origins. So the exact routes that they take, what stopovers they make on the way, and how they use Mannar Island to enter Sri Lanka and further disperse and so on. So as I said, so I work with other groups of water birds, but here from here onwards, I'll focus on the coastal seabirds that we work with. So um, you can see. So here I have presented a set of photos. We started tracking seabirds in 2020. So we have a whole team of volunteers and sometimes our lab members. And this is again my PhD supervisor, Professor Sampath, sitting right in the middle. So we have basically tagged about I think 15 individuals of seabirds so far that belong to seven species, mostly gulls and terns. So it's very hard to capture the true pelagic birds for tracking. And sometimes, on some occasions, we get rescued birds, but they don't. We cannot get very reliable data with the rescue birds. So even though we deploy the trackers on them, that is not going to last long, just as like these coastal birds do. So um, I'll show you what types of tracking devices that we use on these birds. So we use trackers from three manufacturers actually. So HK Vexus, Droid, and Onitella. So these trackers are very helpful when if you are to study their movements and other specs as well. So the location-based data, it gives the latitude, longitude, and even the altitude and the speed, very accurate, 5 to 10 meters there's an accuracy of up to 5 to 10 meters. And we can get almost real-time data. So we can actually program the device as we wish. So we can, if we want to get readings like three or four times a day, it is possible. But you have to be careful in a way that the battery is not drained when the transmission happens frequently. And it also collects environmental data such as the ambient temperature, the light intensity, and also the animal behavior data based on the body acceleration of the tagged bird. So it can collect huge sets of data. So then it's a challenge when you start analyzing the data and you have to think about what you really want to do with this data. You can do a whole lot of things. So right now I'm working on these things one at a time and writing manuscripts, analyzing data, and so on. So actually, I'm not going to go into detail about the attachment methods that we use, how we capture the birds, and so on. Actually, what I'm going to show you. So there is this documentary. This is in YouTube. That's why I wanted to show you. You can go on. The link is provided here. You can later go on to this and have a look at it. And this documentary shows that actually this was made by the national television of Sri Lanka Rupahini Corporation. It's a 1 hour documentary. It's in English. So there are in it you can see how we work. So this team worked with us for a whole year, coming to our camps and working with us, video recording everything, and how we attach the trackers and how we get data, and even some of our results are included in this, so you can have a look later. Yeah, so this is basically what I do from Mannar with the coastal seabirds. Yeah.
That is very interesting. I think you have quite a lot of fun getting out and ringing all the birds. I think purely out of curiosity, I'd ask you which birds have you found to be the easiest to ring, and if you faced any challenges in doing that.
Uh, Pardon, Shivira, I couldn't hear you exactly.
So
What
you
is-
go out and tag quite a lot of birds out in field, right? You said you've tagged about 15 individuals across
Mhm.
different species. Is there
Mhm.
any species that you would say has been the easiest to sort of capture because these are pelagic, and you yourself mentioned they come with quite a lot of challenges
Yeah.
in capturing them and tagging them?
Yeah, okay. No species is easy to catch. Okay, actually, probably that is the most challenging part of my research, capturing the individual that you really want to capture.
Yeah,
Sometimes you end up capturing individuals that are not, maybe they are not adults, maybe they are not healthy enough. So you have
yeah,
to the bird have to be very healthy and fit enough to carry the tracker, and you have to make sure that the bird's welfare, and then again the tracker is like it costs like few $1,000s, so you have to make sure that we get the best from this tracker, deploying this tracker.
yeah. Be very
So
careful with them.
yeah. So the gulls and terns, actually, there are some shorebirds that are kind of easy to capture. For example, uh, a crab plover. It's
I
a
say.
fairly easy one considering our experiences so far. But it's very kind of it's not that easy when it comes to seabirds. So our traditional the methods that we use won't work with them. So yeah, sometimes we get the help of this local fishermen, so they have their indigenous ways of doing it. So
Oh
and
wow.
we
Okay.
yeah we are making sure that the bird is not harming the process. So normally when the fishermen they when they capture the birds, they don't care, right? So they don't want the bird to be unharmed normally when they capture. But we have come up with a system. We have actually two fishermen there in Mannar right now helping us. So, so that actually it has made possible of capturing some of our most important individuals that have given us very good data on especially the Heuglin gulls and brown-headed gulls. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to hear. I can imagine it would be quite challenging, and I'm glad that you had people to help you, sort of, who's already experienced enough to help you and get these specimens tagged. I think what I'd like to know is if you can talk about any unique or novel findings that you have from your research so far, because you're working in such a unique area in the Indian Ocean region, and it's bound to come with some sort of exciting findings.
Exactly. So, so as I mentioned, though, so we have altogether we have tagged about 50 individuals, but the seabirds it was just 15, and out of these 15 individuals, so I'd like to that belong to 7 species. So the most, the most interesting, the exciting results were given by our gulls because one reason, partly due to the gulls are large enough to carry more heavier, reliable trackers. So that worked for years and gave us a very valuable set of data. So firstly, I'd like to show you the migration pattern that we could discover from the tagged Heuglin skulls. So here you can see. So we tagged these Heuglin skulls in Mannar Island in the Gulf of Mannar here in northwestern Sri Lanka. So they have traveled right up to the Arctic Ocean, traveling for 7,000 to 9,000 kilometers one way, and a full migratory journey up and down would uh, cover around 25,000 kilometers, uh, which is impressive distance for a coastal seabird. And this, so we have trackers working for like consecutively 3 years and consecutive cycles of the same birds. So we have actually named them. We have this trio, Manike, Mega, and Mary. So all three travel to the Arctic Circle to the Yamal Peninsula right here, and then came back to Sri Lanka. And interestingly, some of these individuals didn't come back the next season to Sri Lanka, but overwintered in different sites of India. For example, Mumbai. sometimes in Tamil Nadu coast, and sometimes only they came back to Sri Lanka. So we share these birds between the coasts of India and Sri Lanka. So actually, the findings revealed the first definitive evidence of the breeding origin of the South Asian Heuglin skulls. So, and most importantly, so this is a seabird, right? So even though it's a coastal seabird, so if it wants to track the ocean all the way to its breeding ground, it would avoid overland migration. It would avoid flying overland, but they can go to the Mediterranean Sea and then to the Atlantic Ocean right there, and then to the Arctic Ocean. So this is a very long detour that covers about 15,000 kilometers one way. So being a coastal seabird, one would expect these birds to do that, right? But what they did was they avoided this long detour and took a much shorter overland route, so which is a time minimization strategy. So then they could actually utilize a more shorter route, which is about just 7,000 to 9,000 kilometers. But this and before moving on, I want to mention that so this overland migration for a seabird, it's not unheard of for a seabird to fly overland in during migration. Actually, there are evidences for seabirds doing that. For example, Arctic terns, long-tailed skuas, Sabine gull. So these species have been found to migrate, fly, have been found to fly overland during certain parts of their migration, but not as long as a continental scale migration, just like our Heuglin skulls do. So this is a rather novel finding, and also it provided a definitive overland migratory passage linking the Arctic Ocean and the Indian Ocean through the continental Eurasia, which is a novel migratory passage for the seabirds of the Central Asian flyway. So moving on, this comes from a poster that I presented last year at the Global Flyways Conference of the British Ornithologists Union. So I won't go into detail. You can have a look later on. So this is going on YouTube as well. So they avoided this maritime detour, but they took a cost. They took a shorter route. But then again, this shorter route, this overland shorter route, can bring many more barriers to their migration. Especially, the Central Asian Flyway is a flyway that is endowed with a series of ecological barriers. Some of these are among the most formidable barriers for migrating birds on planet Earth. For example, the high mountains of Himalayas and Hindu Kush that lie right across, right between their breeding and non-breeding grounds. So what strategies that they use to overcome these barriers, you can have a look at it later on. So not going to go into detail. Actually, we just finished a manuscript regarding describing everything that I just discussed, and you can. I think it will be published hopefully soon, so you can have a look on your own later on. So that's about the high latitude migration of the coastal seabirds of South Asia uh, using Heuglin skulls that I just described. And moving on, and I'd like to present another finding, a major finding. So how the brown-headed gulls tagged in Gulf of Mannar flew into high altitudes during migration. Their high altitudinal migration, and they overflew the Himalayas on the way. So these birds, you can see, we have again two individuals giving us data, Himakumari, and Himakumari means snow princess in Sinhala. So they breed in the snow-clad Tibetan plateau just above Himalayas. So during this journey on the way, they encounter Himalayas, then they overfly the Himalayas as well. And then we have another individual called Sherpa Tenzing that crossed right next to Mount Everest. So hence named Sherpa Tenzing. So they revealed a loop migration pattern. So when they are flying northward, they use the west coast of India and then the western side of India during the northward migration, and during the southward migration, they use the eastern coast to come back. So they go in a loop. and that was the first that we got to know from our research. And they provided the first ever evidence to the Himalayan crossing of the Sri Lankan wintering brown-headed gulls. So if we go into detail, so here you can see how they cross the Himalayas. So Himalayas is it's probably the most formidable barrier for the birds of the Central Asian flyway. So it is spread from the entire breadth of Indian Peninsula. So the average elevation is between 4,000 to 6,000 kilometers. So there are a lot of peaks that goes beyond 8,000 meters, and even the passes and valleys that cut through this barrier are higher than 4,000 meters from the mean sea level. So which makes a huge barrier for the birds who have to cross this uh, mountain during their annual migratory cycles. So we could see that the brown-headed gulls tried to stick into the lower valleys and gorges that cut through the Himalayas. So there were three main regions that we identified that were used by the gulls to cross over: the Annapurna region, the Khumbu Everest region, and Kanchenjunga region. And there they use here they use Kali Gandaki Gorge and some of the valleys, and here also. And but I should mention that they didn't always look for the valleys, but they could also fly over the mountains when they needed to. For example, Sherpa Tenzing right here in the Khumbu Everest region, they flew over the Mount Cho Oyu. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's like 20 kilometers away from the peak of Mount Everest. And here they flew over an average surface elevation of 6,000 meters from the mean sea level. So this is the surface elevation that I refer to here. The actual flying altitude would be even higher. There are some uncertainties associated with the altitude data given by this current device. So we are working on it in the future to understand the exact altitudes that they use when flying over the Himalayas. But anyway, it was already beyond 6,000 meters above mean sea level. So which is impressive altitude for a seabird like this. And there are birds, a lot of birds are known to cross the Himalayas at high altitudes. But I should mention the brown-headed gull weighs less than 500 grams. And most of these birds which are tracked to fly over the Himalayas are large birds like bar-headed goose, steppe eagle, black kite, etc. So we are thinking of working on how their physiology is adapted to this high altitude flight, but that in the future. So right now we are working on this. And so here you can see I have a graph presenting how their altitude changes with the latitude, starting from this end. This is Sri Lanka, and here the Tibetan Plateau at the, the western end, the right end of the graph. And here, shown here in the pink box, is the Himalayan range. And here in the yellow box is shown inland India. So if we go back, you can see the birds enter inland India from the coast of Andhra Pradesh, and then they fly right up to Bihar and Uttar Pradesh here. Then they stop over in Ganges. So this stretch is shown by this yellow box. So it was actually, we found something unexpected when we plotted this graph. So it is imperative that the birds have to fly high to overcome the Himalayan barrier. But what was unexpected was during this inland India flight. So the average surface elevation is somewhat 300 meters above mean sea level, but the birds flew into very extreme altitudes during this stretch. So they go up to like 2,000 meters to 3,000, and then right up to about 6,000 meters from the sea level during this flight. So we think that probably they were doing so. They were flying at this much high altitudes to seeking for profitable winds, maybe, or else this stretch happened in early to mid-May, so which is a very hot time in India. Maybe they were trying to avoid the higher temperatures when they're close to the ground, and by climbing up the altitude, they might have avoided these high temperatures, and at the same time uh, get the advantage of the high-speed tailwinds that normally occur at such high altitudes. So we are still working on this manuscript, and I wanted to grab something out of my analysis and show you today some of these works that will be published in the near future. Yeah, so these are the major findings, the novel findings that I wanted to share with you from my research. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gayomini. That was very interesting. Like you said, we imagine and we know of a lot of other species who make these long migrations and fly over the Himalayas as well. But I think I've at least never read about these gulls doing that. And we just have this image of geese and albatrosses that kind of do these long range migrations. But it's really interesting to see where your research is going. And I think once your manuscript comes out, it'll be a much interesting read than you make it sound. So the next thing that I would like to ask you is, in general, I think this you've sort of got yourself into this field and you'd be well equipped to answer this. But if people, future researchers or seabird enthusiasts, want to get into understanding the ecology and behavior a lot more deeply and want to conduct research, what sort of advice would you give them, and possibly what kind of qualifications would you say they need to get into this as in sort of as a beginner in the early stages to be able to pursue this?
Yes. Uh, okay. I think I can. I have two answers, maybe. So either you can choose to be an academic. So you can join a, if you want to join a university or a maybe a nature conservation organization, maybe BirdLife International, Wetlands International like organization, and then carry on your research. Then you have to develop your academic qualifications and have to come up with those the qualifications, the educational qualifications that are required for those. So the other option is you can still study seabirds, you can do engage in whatever your profession is, and then you can have this as your hobby, and there are other people doing this, so this is called citizen science. So still you can study seabirds with your having your own profession. You don't have to be an academic. So in the first scenario, I think you must you have to have a you have to start with your bachelor's degree related to biology, so that it will cover the specialized courses that you require for it will it will give you the essential tools that you need, essential knowledge that you want to pursue the research in seabirds. So it will cover the ornithology, the wetland ecology, the marine ecology, and so on. And even when you go into research, you need knowledge on data analysis, the research methods, and so on. So this everything will be covered in a degree like this. So if you want to go one step further, you can always pursue a master's or a MPhil or a PhD in the same field, and this will give you as you go ahead. So you will have to go through, you have to do your own research, and there you will learn by yourself. You will meet people, you will meet a lot of people who is working in the same field. You can learn from one another, and it's a journey. And so uh, when it comes to a person who wants to do it as your hobby or passion, still, I think you have to have this practical skills. So you have to know your birds first. So there are lots of places that you can begin with. So most of you are already in birds. So if you're totally new to this subject, so you have to start with sharpening up your identification skills. There are a lot of local groups that do bird watching, and awareness, knowledge sharing. So you can go bird watching together with these people and learn from them. There are a lot of books, and now with the internet, and you can have access to a lot of free materials. You can read the books, and there are a lot of apps now, specially developed for citizen science, like eBird, then identification aiding apps like Merlin. So these are there. So you can start with that. And then again, if you're pursuing more into the research side, you will have to develop these technical skills. So, for example, in my kind of work, you have to be familiar with capturing birds, banding them, tagging them, and how to then after that how to do data analysis and so on. So if you have pursued, if you have done the degrees that are required for this, so this will cover some of these technical skills will be given by those, but most of the skills that you have to garner by yourself. And finally, you have to have some personal skills as well. You have to be, I think, very persistent and determined, because sometimes, and also you have to be ready to accept failure. Sometimes, we just spend days and days and there are days that we come back empty handed, but the next day we go again, we try again, and it works finally. So that persistence have to be there. And if you, I think it is hard. It is hard, of course. And I think for a female, if a there are another sort of challenges. So we work in these remote corners, and we have to work independently while doing work. We have to take care of ourselves as well. So it's a challenge. But that said, if you really want to do this, if you really love doing it, you just go and do it. You'll find your own way. It's not impossible. It's a journey, but yeah, you start the journey. I think the journey will show you the way. Yeah.
Yep, I can imagine you have to be very, very resilient to be able to carry out proper field work. And especially with working along the sea, there's so many weather conditions that you don't anticipate. And it's all depending on whether it's just going to be a good day or a bad day out. So I can imagine that. And I think one really interesting thing that you highlighted here is you don't have to specifically be an academic to collect data on seabirds. And I think citizen science in general is being being a lot more highlighted in terms of collecting data on seabirds. So it's quite a good thing that I think even hobbyists and just enthusiasts can kind of contribute to overall research and help us understand what the birds are doing and where they are, and just get an insight into their behavior. So you have mentioned about your research and your field work quite a lot, and your journey through that. I think what I would like to finally ask you is, in all of your experiences of conducting the research and studying it till now, and overall from the insights that you've gained from your own fieldwork, where do you think the future of seabirds in the Indian Ocean looks like? It's quite a unique ecosystem and it's quite a unique atmosphere. So, where do you think that the studies are going, and how do you think we should be looking at them now?
About the future. So actually, I'd like to answer this question focusing on more on the Gulf of Mannar, because so it's my main area of study, and also there are some pressing issues for the birds in general in the Gulf of Mannar right now. So we face the seabirds of the Gulf of Mannar face a perilous future, and you can see why right here. So this picture is taken by one of our colleagues, Tahiru. He's a very good seabirder. So he was actually captured these photographs in the southern coast of Mannar. So you can see the brown-headed gulls who are ready for their northward departure. They are all in their breeding plumage and resting in the shore. And in the background, you can see a line of windmills. So in Mannar, so my research so far has produced a lot of information, not just in the scale of global level, not just in the flyway scale, that as I mentioned, as I presented you earlier, but when it comes to local scale as well. And this is how these birds utilize Mannar Island. So actually, this includes other water birds as well, not just seabirds, but many seabirds are presented here. For example, the lesser crested terns in purple here, and in yellow the Heuglin gulls, and in black the Caspian terns. So you can see that both the coasts are heavily utilized by the birds. The whole island is crisscross. So it is an important hub actually, not just the Mannar Island. When we consider the whole Pork Bay and Gulf of Mannar region, which is important for both India and Sri Lanka, not just Sri Lanka. So it's a hub for water birds in the region. So in a place where such a connectivity, such a intricate, complicated patterns exist. So right now, there's a plan to build up more and more windmills within this landscape. So here you can see actually most of the island is protected. Actually, the two ends, the western and eastern ends. So here lies the Adams Bridge National Park, and that's where this Ramas Bridge Island chain starts. And there are like thousands, more than 10, 20,000 breeding pairs of seabirds breed there. And so it is one of the, actually probably one of the most important seabird breeding grounds in the whole North Indian Ocean. And also actually the best, the only such breeding ground that is within the Sri Lankan waters. And that's where it is right here. And here is the Vankale Sanctuary and Vedicalathim Nature Reserve. So the seabirds actually always move back and forth between those two areas. Actually, most of our Heuglin gulls, what they do is they to spend the night they they fly to Dhanushkodi and the Indian side of Ramas Bridge, and during the daytime they come to forage at the fishing beaches of somewhere here in Thodda and further south. So the birds that are shared by both of us, by both India and Sri Lanka, is going to be affected. So there are windmills planned. Actually, shown in blue is the currently operating line of windmills. It's just 30, but there are new uh, the new there are new wind farm that is proposed right now. So still the approval is not given. It's in the discussion. It's a hot topic these days. There are 52 wind turbines that are planned to come between these protected areas, and there are more 21 lines right here. So altogether, it would add up to over 100 windmills. Mannar Island is not a big place. It's like 130 square kilometers, and you can see that like most of it are protected, but this mid stretch is not protected, but still widely utilized by these birds because they are traveling in between among these wetlands every day. So this is going to be a if this actually proceeds, it would cause a really perilous future for the seabirds. And not just this, so this is onshore wind energy. And so this picture I took from the Avistep website, the avian sensitivity tool for energy planning developed by BirdLife International. So you might be aware that India have incorporated Avistep. Sri Lanka is not yet done that. So that's why the Sri Lankan side looks empty. But here you can see that, and also you might have heard about the proposals of developing offshore wind farms in the Gulf of Mannar. You can now see that from my data itself, you can see it's a very critical region for the seabirds and other birds as well. So that you can see that shown in red is very highly sensitive areas. So the Gulf of Mannar is covered in red. So even though it looks like empty in Sri Lankan side, so considering my few previous slides, you can see that this will undoubtedly looks red as well if we do this if we do this Avistep to Sri Lanka as well. We are planning to we are trying to get it done for Sri Lanka really soon. So if this happens, so it's going to be a huge problem for the seabirds and for all our birds, and all these ecological services that they provide us will be in you know it will go off balance. So we have to be very careful. So we have to do more research, and also so to understand, especially now we have a lot of data on the coastal birds, but we need data from pelagic birds as well. And I'm aware that Dr. Matthew Lickeray's findings of the mascarene petrel, which is critically endangered, breeding in Reunion Islands, coming to Sri Lankan EEZ. So offshore wind energy, so it is, so we say that it is better than onshore wind energy, and because it won't cause the problems to the land-based birds when they are located on land. But both, we have to be very careful. It's green energy. It's green. It will only be green if it is placed in the correct place, the correct position. So we have to produce knowledge. We have to understand more and more into their connectivity patterns, and then understand what are the most vulnerable, most sensitive locations in the sea, whether be it on the sea, be it on the land. So then avoid placing these kind of infrastructure in those places. And so we have to study, and also the most important thing, we have to study and we have to incorporate those into development planning if we are really want to move forward with a sustainable future. So that's actually, I'd like to wrap up from here. And yeah, so that's the message that I want to give you all. uh, uh, if we want to conserve these birds for the future generations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Gayomini, because I think as one of the most vulnerable groups, seabirds tend to sort of not get considered while we're developing a lot of local projects. And it does seem like a running theme across a lot of different landscapes and a lot of different countries is that there's very little research for us to actually be able to understand where these birds are and what they're doing and how they're utilizing the places. So I'm very sure that your research is going to help contribute and help us understand that a lot better, fill that gap, and maybe hopefully be taken into account before we go forward with a lot of other developmental projects. And once we do get the AV step done and your manuscripts and your research is completed, hopefully we shall have a much better understanding than where we are at the moment. So I think I would like to wrap up as well by saying thank you so much for making the time to come to us and accepting our invitation to present your research to such a niche crowd. And we have a lot of interested seabirders and enthusiasts who are just actively trying to learn more. And I'm pretty sure your entire presentation has been very, very fascinating for them as well as it has been for me. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I think we'll end the stream now unless you have any final words for anyone else.
Um, uh, Actually, no. Actually, I think I shared everything that I wanted to say. Yeah, thank you again for having me. It was wonderful to talk to you all, because you are it's a really niche crowd that, just as you said, not it's not like presenting to anybody else, but you are truly into these seabirds, and uh, you're very enthusiastic. I know that you're very enthusiastic to hear on the new findings as well. So I'm sure that there are a lot of expert seabird researchers in the crowd today. So some of these I think I might have met already. So last year actually we met
Yeah.
in Mumbai in the Northern Indian Ocean Seabird Workshop during that time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm saying hi to everybody as well. So it was great to have you all today, and thank you for attending the webinar. And I hope I uh, give my best wishes to all the research who's working very hard to conserve our seabirds. And yeah, I wish you success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think I would finally like to mention that we're still functional group on social media. So if anyone else is interested in all the resources, we'll link Gayomini's research here as well. And if you want more an understanding of what the Indian Seabird group does, you can just go to our channel and the website and find everything you want there. Thank you and take care.